An extraordinarily rare and extremely significant archaeological discovery has been unearthed in Jerusalem.
Beneath the ancient stones of Jerusalem's temple mount lies a mystery that has puzzled historians, archaeologists, and believers for centuries. But now, with the help of advanced AI scanning technology, scientists have uncovered something so shocking that it left even the experts pale with fear.
Even without excavations, though, there's plenty of archaeological evidence that can be seen.
What could be hidden beneath one of the most sacred and contested sites in the world? What AI just revealed may rewrite history, shake faith, and challenge everything we thought we knew about the Temple Mount. Let's dive in. The sacred hill where heaven meets earth. Rising from Jerusalem's old city like a crown of stone, its ancient gates and towering walls whisper stories from centuries long gone. Yet, within this storied landscape, one site holds a power and meaning beyond all others. Though not the tallest hill, its importance is unmatched. To Jews, it is the Temple Mount, and to Muslims, it is Haram al-Sharif. For billions across the world, this ground carries immense spiritual weight. Carved from limestone and layered with legend, the Temple Mount is not just a place of stone and soil. It is a crossroads where faith, history, and mystery meet. To stand upon it is to stand where belief and memory merge, a place where heaven itself is said to brush against the earth. It is regarded as the holiest place in the Jewish tradition. Long ago, King Solomon built the first temple here. According to legend, it housed the Ark of the Covenant, believed to carry the very presence of God, safeguarded beneath the wings of golden cherubim. When the Babylonians invaded and destroyed that temple, hope was not lost. On the same sacred ground, a second temple rose, but in 70 AD, it too was reduced to rubble by the Romans. Even in its ruins, the longing for its restoration still burns deeply in Jewish hearts. For Muslims, this site is revered as the noble sanctuary. Tradition holds that it was from here the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven during his night journey. At its center, the magnificent Dome of the Rock, built in the 7th century, gleams with its golden crown against the Jerusalem sky. Before the holy city of Mecca was established as the permanent Qibla, this very place was the original direction of prayer in Islam. Beside it stands the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a cherished center of worship and faith. Christians too find profound meaning here. The Temple Mount is woven into the story of Jesus' life. He walked its courts, preached to the people, and famously overturned the tables of the money changers, declaring that the temple was meant to be a house of prayer, not a marketplace for thieves. The name Ha-Ha-Bayit, or Mount of the House, has ancient roots in the Hebrew scriptures, appearing in the writings of prophets Micah and Jeremiah. This house referred to the dwelling place of God on earth. Over time, other names like Mount Zion were used, but the idea never changed. This mountain was unlike any other. It was not just stone and soil, but a sacred place where heaven and earth touched. According to the Book of Chronicles, Solomon's temple was built on Mount Moriah, the very site where Abraham showed his faith by preparing to offer his son Isaac. The Psalms echo this reverence, praising the mountain as holy ground. For generations, it was believed that God's presence was bound to this place, that His Spirit dwelled among the stones themselves. Beyond the scriptures, however, the Temple Mount's history slips into silence. Its story is layered in rock and rubble, shaped by devotion and conflict. Scholars long to uncover what lies beneath, yet political and religious tensions have kept the ground largely untouched. Only secret digs, quiet explorations, and fleeting discoveries have offered tiny glimpses into the mysteries below. And those rare glimpses hint that an ancient secret still lies hidden under its surface. Through the ages, empire after empire left its mark on the Mount. The Persians allowed the Jews to rebuild. The Greeks defiled it. The Romans destroyed it. The Byzantines crowned it with churches. The Umayyads raised the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Crusaders turned it into a fortress. The Ottomans restored it. The British oversaw it. Each ruler reshaped its boundaries and redefined its purpose. Yet across all these transformations, one truth has endured. This mount has never ceased to be a place of awe, conflict, and unshakable reverence. This is no ordinary piece of land. For Jews, the temple was the very place where God's presence dwelled. For Muslims, it was a bridge to heaven. For Christians, it was sacred because Jesus himself walked here. Across all three faiths, the Temple Mount stood as a meeting point between heaven and earth. But its importance goes far beyond history. It has always been a symbol of power and faith. Throughout the centuries, nations have fought over it. Kings dreamed of its splendor. Pilgrims crossed deserts just to set foot on its sacred ground. Even when the site was closed off, its pull never faded. Some risked everything to dig around its borders, desperate to uncover what lay hidden. But why such urgency for access? And what secrets were waiting below? The ground. No one dares to touch normally. Exploring ancient ruins is straightforward. Gather tools, get the permits, and start digging. But the Temple Mount is different. Every stone here carries layers of holiness, politics, and history. A single shovel strike could unleash not just dust, but international conflict. Since the 1800s, dreamers and adventurers have wondered what mysteries sleep beneath this plateau. One of the first to try was Charles Warren, a British engineer. With little more than oil lamps for light, he crept into the hidden shafts, water channels, and carved chambers below Jerusalem. What he saw was breathtaking: vast cisterns, mysterious tunnels, and empty spaces whose purpose no one could explain. His discoveries ignited public imagination. If such wonders lay under the city, what unimaginable treasures might lie beneath the Temple Mount itself? But curiosity came at a cost. Alarmed by the risks, religious leaders soon forbade all exploration under the mount. The soil there was not just dirt, it was holy, and from then on, archaeologists were barred from disturbing it. The reasons for this remain both deeply spiritual and politically charged. To Jews, the Temple Mount is regarded as the most sacred spot on earth. According to Jewish belief, the Holy of Holies, the innermost chamber of the ancient temple where God's presence was said to dwell, still lies hidden somewhere beneath the platform we see today. Because of this, Jewish law warns against accidentally stepping on the sanctified ground, leading many devout Jews to avoid walking on the mount altogether. For Muslims, the site holds equal reverence. The Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, standing side by side on the hilltop, are honoured as the third holiest place in Islam. The dome gleams brilliantly under the sun, while Al-Aqsa remains a cherished sanctuary for prayer and devotion. For decades, the responsibility of safeguarding these sacred spaces has been entrusted to the Islamic Waqf, based in Jordan. Though their authority is subtle, it is absolute, and any attempt to dig beneath the surface could be seen as a challenge to Muslim custodianship, sparking tension or even conflict. This fragile balance has made the Temple Mount untouchable. Excavating here is not just about history. It strikes at the heart of faith, identity, and peace itself. After the Six-Day War in 1967, Israeli archaeologists began examining areas around the mount. Near the southern wall, they uncovered layers dating back to the Second Temple period, as well as remains from the Roman and Crusader eras. They also found traces of early Muslim palaces, long buried under later construction. On the western side, new tunnels were gradually explored, eventually opening to the public as the Western Wall Tunnel. These discoveries revealed fragments of Jerusalem's intricate past, but the most mysterious heart of the mount remained untouched. Then, in the late 1990s, an event shook the archaeological world. Without permission, truckloads of soil were removed from the Temple Mount and dumped into the Kidron Valley. Within that soil lay centuries of history, discarded without documentation, without study, without care. For many, it was an irreversible loss, but for others, it was an unexpected opportunity. In 2004, a group of Israeli archaeologists launched the Temple Mount Sifting Project. Volunteers of all ages and backgrounds gathered in a public park, painstakingly sifting through the soil bucket by bucket. Slowly, forgotten pieces of history began to emerge. To everyone's amazement, over 500,000 artifacts were uncovered. Among them were coins bearing the names of ancient kings, arrowheads believed to date back to Crusader battles, and jewelry from early Islamic times. Each fragment told its own story, carrying with it echoes of generations who once walked the mount. Piece by piece, the soil gave back what had been thoughtlessly cast away. What was once dismissed as discarded soil revealed itself to be a priceless archive of the past. Yet, the most remarkable discoveries weren't the ancient coins or the Crusader weapons. Instead, they were the delicate remains linked to the First Temple, objects tied to purity, sacred rituals, and instruments of worship. For years, many doubted whether Solomon's temple ever stood exactly as described in Scripture. But these fragments suggested otherwise. They became fragile pieces of proof that the stories were not just myths, they were history preserved in stone, clay, and bone. Treasures in the dust. The Temple Mount Sifting Project began as a rescue mission to salvage what seemed like worthless debris. But bucket by bucket, that soil began to reveal its hidden importance. Every grain of dust held memory, every broken shard whispered a tale. With each find, it became clear. This was not just about recovering artifacts, it was about reviving a forgotten age of faith. At first, the discoveries appeared ordinary. A simple shard of pottery, carefully washed, revealed painted designs dating back to the 8th century BCE, the era of the First Temple. Soon after came more, fragments of oil lamps, charred animal bones, and shattered ceremonial objects. To an untrained eye, they might have looked insignificant. But to scholars, they spoke of ritual, reverence, and a devotion to the divine. Then came a breakthrough that stopped the team in their tracks. They uncovered a hardened piece of clay, cracked with age, but still bearing the faint imprint of a seal. Under careful study, the ancient Hebrew letters became clear. Ga'aliyahu, son of Immer. This name wasn't unfamiliar. It appeared in the book of Jeremiah, linked to a priestly family of the First Temple. In that moment, the seal was no longer just an object. It was a bridge across time, connecting the modern world to a real man who once lived, wrote, and sealed scrolls nearly 3,000 years ago. And it wasn't alone. Other clay seals, or bulli, soon emerged, some bearing names and titles, others marked with images of menorahs, temple gates, or priestly garments. These tiny relics were fragments of a lost system, the remains of a priesthood long thought to exist only in sacred texts. Here it was, shattered yet undeniably real. One of the most delicate finds was an ivory comb, its teeth still surprisingly sharp despite centuries buried in the earth. What made it extraordinary was not its craftsmanship, but its inscription, the oldest complete Canaanite sentence ever discovered. The words were simple, but they spoke of cleanliness, care, and perhaps ritual purity. A common item, elevated by its context, transformed into something sacred. Other treasures followed. A tiny bronze incense shovel, still stained with traces of sacrifice, carried with it the fragrance of devotion from a vanished world. Each artifact added another layer to the mystery. Ordinary objects that, together, revealed an extraordinary story of faith, worship, and resilience. Not far from the sacred ground, tiny fragments of finely crafted jewelry were discovered, perhaps once worn by laborers, priests, or even pilgrims who lost them in times of turmoil, exile, or conflict. Yet the soil revealed much more than personal belongings. It carried traces of many eras layered together: Roman, Byzantine, and Islamic relics mixed with even older remains, all testifying to the enduring sanctity of the Temple Mount across civilizations. Despite centuries of shifting rulers and changing faiths, the land never lost its sacred aura. Still, it was the deepest and oldest layer that captured the greatest attention. For generations, skeptics had dismissed Solomon's temple as legend, claiming no evidence supported its existence. But with every discovery, that doubt grew weaker. Clay seals, ritual vessels, animal bones, and sacred objects began aligning with biblical descriptions of temple ceremonies. Each artifact chipped away at the wall of uncertainty, bringing scholars closer to confirming the truth. Even more intriguing was the way the items were arranged. Rather than being scattered randomly, they clustered together as if originating from a specific chamber or collapsed area. This hinted at something deeper. A hidden chamber, perhaps, or forgotten passageways sealed for over 1,000 years. It felt as though the soil itself was pointing the way toward tunnels and rooms long lost to history. Piece by piece, the dust revealed its secrets. What had once been dismissed as rubble transformed into a priceless treasure trove. In time, over 500,000 relics were recovered. Coins stamped with Herod's image, Crusader arrowheads, Islamic-era jewelry, and countless others. Yet the most powerful finds remained those tied to the First Temple, evidence binding faith to history, belief to reality. And in recent years, technology has taken the search further. Artificial intelligence has begun peeling back the layers of mystery still hidden beneath the mount. What it found would astonish the world. The hidden path beneath the mount. Between 2021 and 2024, a new generation of scholars began revisiting the terrain around the Temple Mount. Their mission was unlike earlier excavations. Instead of simply digging for artifacts, they turned to forgotten archives, hand-drawn maps from the British Mandate period, and re-examined them with the power of AI. Their focus fell on the southern edge of the mount, near the western wall, where for centuries whispers had spoken of secret chambers below the stone. The Ottomans had heard these rumours. The British even documented them. Ancient travellers too wrote of hidden passageways beneath the holy plateau. Still, the stories remained half-believed, drifting in the shadows between folklore and fact. That silence finally began to break in 2023. Because digging on the Temple Mount was forbidden, the team turned to advanced technology instead of shovels. Using ground-penetrating radar, the same method that revealed hidden corridors in the Egyptian pyramids, they scanned beneath the limestone. Slowly, the data began to take shape. What appeared on their screens was extraordinary. The shapes weren't natural. They were too sharp, too angular. Outlines of walls, corners and chambers began to emerge, clear signs of human construction buried deep below the bedrock. To confirm their findings, the researchers compared the scans with those old British maps drawn by officers who once had limited access under the Ottomans in the early 1900s. Those men had sketched stairways, tunnels and blocked passageways beneath the mount. When the modern scans were laid over the century-old maps, the result was stunning. The patterns matched with uncanny accuracy. Every detail aligned perfectly with the old maps. Direct digging under the mount was forbidden, but excavations near the western wall revealed a staircase cut into limestone. At its base lay a forgotten chamber, silent and marked with faded crosses, evidence of a Byzantine sanctuary. Yet beneath its floor was something older. Massive ashlar stones fitted with precision, resembling First Temple architecture. Tests confirmed the foundation predated Herod, possibly by centuries, suggesting it was once part of a sacred site. Even more astonishing was the discovery of a vast underground water system, cisterns, channels and aqueducts carved into bedrock. Lined with ancient plaster, the network dated back to the First Temple era, over 2,500 years ago. The water system wasn't ordinary. It was brilliantly engineered. Channels directed rainfall, overflow ducts prevented floods, and cisterns aligned with passages in the Book of Chronicles, linking the network to temple rituals. One basin stood out, its ash and organic traces hinting at use in sacrifices and purification rites, revealing a faith far more advanced than once believed. Then came the real shock. AI scans uncovered a sealed stone doorway leading to a hidden chamber. Inside lay a simple basin surrounded by lamps and incense, untouched for centuries. Etched faintly into its surface were words in Paleo-Hebrew, speaking of a lasting presence, a spirit bound to the mount. The inscription echoed ancient descriptions of the Holy of Holies, the most sacred place in the temple, where only the high priest could enter once a year. For centuries it was spoken of, but never proven. Now, for the first time, the evidence was right before them. The lamps, the limestone basin, the script, all matched the era of Solomon. It was clear, specific, and undeniable. This wasn't just a relic, it was a breakthrough, proof of a space once believed to be the ultimate link between heaven and earth. But the discovery stirred caution. Authorities kept it quiet, fearing tensions at such a sacred site. Scholars debated, faith groups reacted, and some saw prophecy fulfilled. Others warned it was a violation of a space too holy to be touched. Behind the silence, research pressed on with new technology, seeking hidden chambers without disturbing the ground. Ancient texts were re-examined with fresh eyes, hinting that what many thought were legends might have always been reality. The Temple Mount was no longer just a religious site. It was shaping up to be the greatest archaeological discovery of our time.